The massive station hung in space like a jewel. It orbited a white star that belonged to no one. This was the Galactic Council, home to the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy. Ships from 100 worlds docked at its ports every day. Today, the council chamber was full. Ambassador Chen Wei walked through the corridors with steady steps. She had done this walk many times before. 127 years ago, humanity had joined the council. They were the youngest members, the newest, the least respected. Chen entered the chamber and took her seat. The human delegation sat in the outer ring, far from the center where the elder species gathered. Above them, the hierarchy loomed on their elevated platforms. They looked like massive insects, their bodies covered in shimmering blue shells. They were philosophers and kings. Their civilization was 3 million years old. To the left, the luminous floated in containment fields. They were beings of pure energy, glowing with soft light. They rarely spoke, but when they did, everyone listened. They claimed to have achieved enlightenment 2 million years ago. There were 10 other species in the inner circle. All of them were ancient. All of them looked down on humanity. The High Chancellor called the session to order. He was a hierarchy elder, his antenna moving slowly as he spoke. "We face a crisis," he said. His voice echoed through translation devices. "The Devourers approach our space." Chen sat up straighter. She had heard rumors, but nothing official. The chamber filled with worried sounds. "How long have you known?" someone called out. The Chancellor hesitated. 300 years. The chamber exploded in noise. Chen felt her jaw tighten. 300 years. They had hidden this for 3 centuries. "Why tell us now?" she asked, her voice cutting through the chaos. The Chancellor turned his great head toward her. "Because they are now close enough to matter." Chen stood up. "How close?" "They will reach the outer territories in approximately 1 standard year." The chamber went quiet. 1 year. Chen pulled up her data tablet and began typing quickly. "What do we know about them?" asked the representative from Kelmar, a peaceful aquatic species. "They are a consuming force," the Chancellor said. "They strip worlds of all biological matter. They cannot be stopped by conventional means." "Have we attempted communication?" This was from one of the Luminous. "No. We believed isolation was the better strategy." Chen stood again. "With respect, Chancellor, isolation has failed. They are coming. We need to prepare a military defense." The hierarchy elder made a sound that Chen's translator interpreted as dismissive laughter. "Military defense? How typical of humans. Violence is always your first response." "It's not our first response," Chen said, keeping her voice level. "It's our response when something threatens to eat us." "Your species has been in space for barely 3 centuries, another hierarchy member said. "We have maintained peace in this galaxy for millions of years. We do not rush to warfare like primitive children." Chen felt heat rising in her chest, but she controlled it. "Then what do you propose?" The luminous representative spoke, its voice like music. "We should attempt diplomatic contact. All beings can be reasoned with. Violence only breeds more violence. These things destroy entire worlds," Chen said. "What exactly do you plan to negotiate?" "You assume they cannot communicate because you do not understand them," the luminous said. "This is the arrogance of youth." Chen wanted to argue, but she knew it was pointless. She had been in this chamber long enough to know how it worked. The elder species had made up their minds before the session even started. "I propose we send a diplomatic envoy," the Chancellor said. "A ship bearing gifts and messages of peace. We will show them we mean no harm." "And if they destroy the ship?" Chen asked. "Then we will know they are not ready for dialogue and we will adjust our approach." "How many beings will be on that ship?" Chen demanded. "Approximately 2,000. You're willing to sacrifice 2,000 lives on a guess?" The Chancellor's antenna drooped forward. "We are willing to risk 2,000 lives to potentially save trillions. That is the burden of wisdom, Ambassador Chen. Something your species will understand when you mature." Chen sat down. There was no point in continuing this. She could see how the vote would go. "I propose we also prepare military defenses," she said. "While we attempt diplomacy, we should be ready if it fails." "No," the Chancellor said firmly. "Military preparation would be seen as aggression. It might provoke them. We will not risk war through reckless action." "They're coming to eat us," Chen said, her voice rising despite her control. "How is that not already war?" "Perhaps they do not see it that way," the Luminous said. "Perhaps they are simply feeding with no malice." Would you blame a herbivore for eating grass? Chen stared at the glowing being. Grass doesn't build starships. Your metaphor lacks sophistication. The Chancellor called for a vote. The diplomatic envoy was approved unanimously, except for humanity's vote against. The military preparation was rejected, 47 votes to 1. After the session, Chen stood in the observation deck looking out at the stars. Admiral Sarah Okonkwo joined her. The admiral was tall and solid, her uniform perfectly pressed. Her dark eyes reflected the starlight. That went well, Okonkwo said, her voice dry. They voted to send 2,000 people to die while pretending it's diplomacy, Chen said. And they voted against letting us prepare defenses. Chen turned to her. They can vote all they want about what happens in council space, but they can't tell us what to do in human territory. Okonkwo smiled slightly. No, they can't. How long would it take to militarize our border worlds? If we pull resources from the joint projects? 6 months, maybe less. Do it quietly, and when they notice? Chen looked back at the stars. Then they notice. I'm not going to watch human worlds burn because these ancient fools forgot that the universe doesn't care how enlightened you think you are. Okonkwo nodded. I'll need authorization from Earth. You'll have it by tomorrow. The admiral left. Chen stood alone in the observation deck. Somewhere out there beyond the light of distant stars, something was coming, something hungry, something that didn't care about philosophy or enlightenment or millions of years of civilization. The elder species thought humanity was primitive, warlike, aggressive. Maybe they were right. But humanity knew something these ancient beings had forgotten during their millions of years of peace. The universe was not a safe place. It had never been safe, and peace only lasted as long as no one came along who wanted to break it. Chen pulled out her personal communicator and sent a coded message to Earth. 3 words. Begin the preparations. She looked up at the Galactic Council station, this monument to ancient wisdom and cooperation. It was beautiful. It was sophisticated. It was completely unprepared for what was coming. And when the Devourers arrived, Chen thought, these elder species would learn a hard lesson, one that humanity had learned long ago back on their violent little world. Hope was not a strategy, and wisdom without strength was just philosophy waiting to be devoured. She turned and walked back toward the human quarters. There was work to do and not much time to do it. The council could play at diplomacy. Humanity would prepare for war, because that's what primitive species did. They survived. 6 months had passed since the council session. The diplomatic envoy had launched with great ceremony. Speeches were made about peace and understanding. The hierarchy blessed the mission. The Luminous said it was the dawn of a new era of galactic harmony. Then the envoy vanished. No distress call. No final message. The ship simply stopped transmitting. One moment it was there on the tracking systems, the next moment it was gone. 2,000 beings erased from existence. The council held an emergency session. Chen Wei sat in her usual seat, watching the elder species argue about what the disappearance meant. Perhaps they are studying our technology, one of the hierarchy suggested. They may need time to understand our communication methods. Or perhaps they destroyed the ship and everyone on it, Chen said flatly. The Chancellor turned to her. You assume the worst, as always, Ambassador. I assume what the evidence suggests, Chen replied. A ship went to meet the Devourers. The ship disappeared. That's not complicated mathematics. It is too soon to draw conclusions, the Luminous representative said. We must be patient. Chen bit back her response. She had learned that arguing with them was pointless. But then the colony worlds on the rim started going dark. First, it was Kelmar 7, a small outpost with 50,000 residents. Communication stopped. When scout ships arrived, they found nothing. No buildings, no bodies. The planet was stripped clean down to bare rock. Then Tyros III went silent. Population 200,000. Then Vex Minor, 300,000. Each time, the council debated. They formed committees. They analyzed data. They discussed possibilities. And each time, Chen Wei presented the same evidence. The Devourers were here. They were consuming worlds. They needed to act. Each time, the council found reasons to wait. We cannot jump to military action, the Chancellor said. We must consider all possibilities. Meanwhile, humanity was not waiting. Admiral Okonkwo had been working day and night. Human shipyards hidden in asteroid fields and dark nebulae were running at full capacity. Fortress stations appeared on border worlds. Weapon systems that the Council had never seen were deployed and tested. Humanity pulled resources from every joint project with the Council. Scientific exchanges stopped. Shared research facilities went unmanned. Trade agreements went unfulfilled. The Council noticed. Humanity is violating cooperation treaties, the hierarchy representative declared at a full session. They have withdrawn from joint ventures. They have militarized their territory without authorization. This is unacceptable. Chen Wei stood. Unacceptable? 12 worlds have gone silent. Over 3 million beings are dead or missing. And you're concerned about cooperation treaties? The treaties maintain order, the Chancellor said. Without order, we have chaos. Without action, we have extinction, Chen said. The Chancellor's antenna twitched with anger. You overstep, Ambassador. The Council has existed for 10 million years. We have weathered many storms. We do not need lectures from a species that has barely learned to leave its own star system. Chen pulled up a holographic display. Then explain this. Images filled the air above the Council floor. They showed the rim worlds, or what was left of them. Barren rocks where forests had stood, empty oceans where cities had thrived, and in some images, dark shapes at the edge of space, ships, thousands of them. These are from our scout drones, Chen said. The Devourers are not studying us. They are not trying to communicate. They are consuming everything in their path, and they're moving toward the core worlds. The chamber filled with worried sounds. Several representatives stood, shouting questions. The Chancellor raised his forearms for silence. These images could be fabricated, Chen stared at him. Why would we fabricate this? To justify your military buildup. To create fear that benefits your warmongering culture. Warmongering? Chen's voice was cold now. 3 of those 12 destroyed worlds were human colonies. We lost 800,000 people. But please tell me more about our warmongering. The hierarchy representative stood on his platform. We have analyzed the data independently. We have found evidence that these worlds may have simply chosen isolation. There are precedents for this. The Kelmar are known for their reclusive tendencies. The Kelmar are dead, Chen shouted. She never shouted in council. Not in 12 years as ambassador. But now she was shouting. They're dead and you're creating fantasies to avoid facing reality. Ambassador Chen, you will control yourself, the Chancellor said. Chen took a breath. She looked around the chamber. The elder species looked uncomfortable. Some looked away. None of them met her eyes. They knew. She could see it. Deep down they knew she was right. But they were old. They were comfortable. They had lived in peace for so long that they had forgotten what war looked like. Or maybe they just couldn't accept that their peace was ending. I request, Chen said, her voice level again, that humanity be allowed to prepare military defenses. If the Council will not act, at least do not prevent us from protecting ourselves. The Chancellor was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, the Council has already voted on this matter. Military preparation is seen as provocative. We will not change this decision. Even though worlds are dying, we do not know that they are dying. We know only that communication has stopped. There are many possible explanations. Chen sat down slowly. She felt cold inside. That night, 3 more human colonies went silent. But this time there were survivors. A transport ship that had been leaving when the attack began. It jumped to faster than light speeds and fled to the nearest human base. Admiral Okonkwo sent Chen the recordings. Chen watched them alone in her quarters. The images were shaky, taken from a fleeing ship's rear cameras. But they were clear enough. The Devourers were not a single species. They were a swarm. Millions of ships, each one organic, grown rather than built. They surrounded the colony world like a cloud. Then they descended. The recording showed the cities being stripped away. Buildings dissolved. Forests vanished. The oceans boiled away. In less than 2 hours, a living world became a dead rock. The survivors described them as machines that ate. They had no interest in communication. They showed no mercy. They simply consumed. Chen sent the recordings to the Council. She demanded an emergency session. The session was held the next day. Chen played the recordings for everyone to see. The chamber was silent as they watched a world die. When it ended, Chen stood. This is what we're facing. Not a misunderstanding, not a communication problem. An enemy that wants to consume us, all of us. I am begging this council to act. Authorize military preparations, share defensive technologies, coordinate our forces, or we will all die alone. The Chancellor was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "The council will take this evidence under advisement. We will form a committee to study the recordings and determine their authenticity. In the meantime, Ambassador Chen, humanity is formally censured for violating cooperation agreements. You are ordered to dismantle your military buildup and return to your treaty obligations." Chen felt something break inside her, not her composure. Something deeper, some hope she had been holding on to. "I want this vote recorded," she said quietly. "I want it sealed in the council archives. For posterity." The Chancellor agreed. The vote was taken. Humanity was censured by a vote of 46-1. Chen returned to her quarters. Admiral Okonkwo was waiting. "They censured us," Chen said. "I heard. They want us to dismantle our defenses. Will we?" Chen looked at her old friend. "No, we will not. And when they try to enforce it, we'll deal with that too." Okonkwo nodded. "It's going to get worse before it gets better." "I know," Chen said. "But at least humanity will survive. I'm not sure I can say the same for the council." Outside the window, the station's lights glittered against the darkness of space. Beautiful, ancient, doomed. 3 months later, the Devourers arrived at Hierarchy Prime. It was one of the oldest worlds in the galaxy. The Hierarchy had lived there for 3 million years. Their great libraries held the wisdom of ages. Their crystal cities were architectural wonders. 14 billion beings called it home. The Devourers consumed it in 48 hours. Chen Wei watched the reports come in from the council chamber. All around her, the elder species were finally showing fear. The Hierarchy representatives were keening in grief. The luminous dimmed their light. Even the Chancellor, who had dismissed every warning, sat frozen on his platform. "We need immediate military response," the Chancellor said. His voice was different now, smaller, afraid. Chen said nothing. She just watched. The council moved quickly after that. Centuries of debate suddenly compressed into hours. They authorized military action. They called up reserves. They demanded every member species contribute ships and soldiers. But they had waited too long. Their fleets were scattered. Their weapons were old. Many species had not maintained military forces for thousands of years. They had forgotten how. Humanity had not forgotten. The Council demanded humanity commit 90% of their fleet to Council command. Other species were required to commit only 30 or 40%. "Why 90%? Chen asked. "Because humanity has the most advanced military technology," the Chancellor said. "And because you have been preparing for this while others focused on peace. So we're punished for being ready? You are asked to do more because you can do more. This is the responsibility of strength." Chen looked at Admiral Okonkwo, who sat beside her in the chamber. The Admiral's face was carved stone. "We'll contribute 70%, Chen said. "The same as other species should contribute. No more, no less." "That is unacceptable," the Chancellor said. The Council requires many things," Chen interrupted. "But the Council is not in a position to make demands. You can accept our offer, or you can face the Devourers with whatever forces you can muster yourselves." The chamber erupted in angry sounds. Representatives shouted at Chen. They called humanity selfish, cowardly, traitors. Chen sat quietly until they finished. "We'll give you 70%, she said again. "But we keep our own command structure. Human ships follow human orders." The Chancellor's antenna trembled with rage. "You do not trust Council leadership?" "I trust that Council leadership has gotten 3 million beings killed through indecision and denial. I trust that you ignored every warning we gave. I trust that you censured us for preparing to survive. So no, Chancellor, I do not trust Council leadership with human lives." In the end, the Council accepted. They had no choice. The Devourers were 3 weeks away from the next major world. The first major battle happened at Vex Major. It was a fortress world, heavily populated with orbital defense platforms. The Council fleet gathered there. Over 10,000 ships from 30 different species. It should have been enough. But the Council had no unified command. Each species had their own tactics, their own communication protocols. The Hierarchy wanted to use ancient battle formations from wars fought millions of years ago. The Luminous insisted on attempting communication even as the Devourers approached. The smaller species panicked and broke formation. The human fleet under Admiral Okonkwo's command held the right flank. They fought with precision and discipline. Their weapons were newer, more powerful. Their tactics were brutal and effective, but they couldn't save the battle alone. The Devourers broke through the center of the Council line. The main fleet scattered. Thousands of ships fled in different directions. And then the Council commanders gave their order. Human fleet, you are ordered to hold position and cover our retreat. Admiral Okonkwo looked at the tactical display. Holding position meant staying in front of the Devourers. It meant dying so the elder species could run. Chen Wei was on the command channel. Admiral, you are not required to follow that order. Okonkwo was quiet for a moment. If I don't, tens of thousands of beings will die. If you do, thousands of humans will die. I know, Chen understood. This was who Okonkwo was, who humanity was. They didn't abandon people, even people who had abandoned them. Do what you think is right, Chen said quietly. Okonkwo gave the order. The human fleet turned and held position. They fought the Devourers head-on while the Council fleet escaped. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 40% of the human fleet was gone. 300 ships, 15,000 human lives, but the Council fleet survived. Over 8,000 ships made it to safety. Admiral Okonkwo's flagship was badly damaged. She brought it limping back to the rally point days later. The human crews were exhausted. Many were wounded. All of them had watched friends die. The Council called an emergency session to discuss the battle. Chen Wei sat in the chamber and waited. She wondered if they would acknowledge the human sacrifice, if they would offer gratitude, if they would admit that human lives had bought their survival. The Chancellor spoke first. The battle at Vex Major was a disaster. We lost the world. We lost our defensive positions, and we lost them because of reckless aggression. Chen felt ice in her stomach. Whose aggression? The human fleet engaged the enemy with excessive force, on a hierarchy representative said. Your weapons, your tactics, they provoked the Devourers into a frenzy. They responded to your violence with greater violence. Admiral Okonkwo stood up. She never attended council sessions, but she was here now. Her uniform was still scorched from the battle. We saved your lives, she said. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through the chamber like a blade. You endangered everyone with your primitive warfare, the Luminous said. Violence begets violence. This is a fundamental truth you refuse to understand. 15,000 of my people died so you could run, Okonkwo said. And you're blaming us for fighting? You should have fought differently, the Chancellor said. Less aggressively, more thoughtfully. There is no thoughtful way to fight things that want to eat you. Okonkwo's voice was rising now. They don't care about your philosophy. They don't care about your enlightenment. They only understand one thing. And we're the only ones willing to speak their language. And that is exactly the problem, the Chancellor said. Your species is too comfortable with violence. It clouds your judgment. It makes you dangerous, perhaps as dangerous as the Devourers themselves. Chen stood beside the Admiral. What exactly are you saying? I am saying that the Council has concluded humanity bears partial responsibility for the disaster at Vex Major. We are levying reparations. You will compensate the affected species for their losses. Compensate? Chen's voice was very quiet now. We saved them. And you want us to pay? Furthermore, the Chancellor continued, all human military forces will be placed under direct Council command. You will surrender control of your fleets to hierarchy leadership. This is non-negotiable. You want us to give you our ships? Okonkwo said. We want you to submit to proper authority. Your Admiral clearly cannot be trusted to make sound tactical decisions. Chen looked at Okonkwo. The Admiral's hands were shaking. Not from fear, from rage. Around the chamber, the other species avoided looking at them. Some looked guilty. Some looked satisfied. None looked grateful. Is there anything else? Chen asked. Yes, the Chancellor said. There will be no recognition of human casualties in the official battle report. We do not want to encourage the martyr narrative that humans seem to favor. It sends the wrong message. Something inside Chen Wei shattered. Not broke, shattered, into dust. She looked at Admiral Okonkwo. Then she looked at the human delegation behind her. Young diplomats who had dedicated their lives to building bridges with these elder species. Scientists who had shared their discoveries. Soldiers who had just watched their friends die protecting these same beings, who now demanded payment for the privilege. Council session will resume tomorrow morning, the Chancellor said. We expect humanity's formal acceptance of these terms by then. Chen Wei nodded slowly. Tomorrow morning, yes, we'll have our answer by then. She turned and walked out of the chamber. The human delegation followed. Behind them, the council returned to their debates about tactics and strategies and how to respond to the devourers. None of them saw the look on Chen Wei's face as she left. If they had, they might have realized something important. They had finally pushed too far. Chen Wei spent the night in her quarters. She did not sleep. She wrote instead. She wrote a speech, deleted it, wrote another. Deleted that too. Finally, she stopped trying to write anything elaborate. The truth was simple. It didn't need fancy words. Admiral Okonkwo came to her quarters at dawn. Her uniform was fresh now, perfectly pressed again. But her eyes were tired. Earth has sent authorization, Okonkwo said. For whatever decision you make. They know what I'm going to do? Everyone knows what you're going to do, Chen. The only question is how you're going to do it. Chen smiled slightly. I was thinking of keeping it simple. Simple is good. They walked together to the council chamber. The human delegation followed. Word had spread that something important was about to happen. The gallery was full of observers from dozens of species. The council members took their positions. The chancellor called the session to order. We will now hear humanity's response to the terms presented yesterday, he said. Chen Wei stood. She did not go to the speaking platform. She stood in her seat in the outer ring where junior members belonged. Members of the Galactic Council, she began. Her voice was calm, clear. I want to thank you for 127 years of educational experience. The Chancellor's antenna twitched. He sensed something wrong. When humanity first joined this council, we were honored. You were ancient, wise. You had built a civilization that lasted millions of years. We had so much to learn from you. Chen pulled out her tablet. She displayed data in the air above the council floor. And we did learn. We learned that you held emergency sessions about the devourers but kept the threat secret for 300 years. We learned that you sent 2,000 beings to die rather than prepare for war. We learned that you censured us for building defenses while you built nothing. The data shifted. Images of destroyed worlds. We learned that you ignored every warning we gave. That you called evidence fear-mongering. That you chose comfortable lies over hard truths. More images. The battle at Vex Major. We learned that when we gave 70% of our fleet to defend you, you demanded 90. When we sacrificed 15,000 lives to save yours, you blamed us for fighting. When we asked for gratitude, you demanded payment. Chen looked around the chamber. Every eye was on her. We learned that you would never see us as equals, that no matter what we did, how much we gave, how many of us died, we would always be the primitive children in your eyes. She paused. Thank you for teaching us these lessons. They have been invaluable. The Chancellor leaned forward. Ambassador Chen, do you accept the Council's terms or not? No, Chen said simply. We do not. The chamber filled with noise. The Chancellor raised his forearms for silence. Then humanity will face sanctions. You will be expelled from joint projects, denied access to Council space, possibly expelled from... We are withdrawing from the Galactic Council, Chen said. Effective immediately, the noise stopped. Complete silence filled the chamber. The Chancellor stared at her. What did you say? Humanity is withdrawing from the Galactic Council. We are leaving. We're done. You cannot leave, the Chancellor said. No one leaves the Council. We just did. The luminous representative floated forward. Ambassador Chen, please reconsider. In 10 million years of Council history, no species has ever left. It simply is not done. Then we're making history, Chen said. A representative from one of the smaller species stood. But what about unity? What about cooperation? Chen turned to him. What cooperation? You take our resources, our technology, our lives. You give us orders and contempt. That's not cooperation. That's exploitation. If you leave, you'll be alone, the Chancellor said. Unprotected. The devourers will destroy you. We've been protecting ourselves just fine, Chen said. Better than you've protected yourselves. She gestured to Admiral Okonkwo. The Admiral activated a new holographic display. It showed the human fleet, but not the 70% that was currently under Council command. This was different. The chamber filled with shocked sounds as they realized what they were seeing. You've been holding back, the Chancellor said. We've been preparing. Chen corrected. Did you really think we'd commit everything we had after watching how you operate? The display showed shipyards hidden in asteroid belts, massive stations in deep space, weapon platforms that made Council technology look like toys, fortress worlds bristling with defenses. We have 150 worlds, Chen said. Every single one is now a fortress. We have 6,000 ships in reserve that you've never seen. We have weapon systems that we developed in secret because we knew you'd call them too aggressive. She zoomed in on one of the fortress worlds. We have learned to survive without you, and we've learned something else. Something you forgot during your millions of years of peace. What's that? The Chancellor asked quietly. Respect is not given to the ancient. It's earned by the capable. Chen deactivated the display. We will defend our territory. We will not abandon our colonies. We will not leave our people to die because you disapprove of how we fight. You are making a grave mistake, the Luminous said. The mistake was thinking you'd ever see us as anything other than primitive children, Chen replied. We're done begging for your approval. We're done dying for your philosophy. We're done. The Chancellor stood on his platform. All of his composure was gone now. If you do this, the Council will not help you. When the Devourers come to your worlds, you will face them alone. We're already facing them alone, Chen said. The only difference is now we're not pretending otherwise. She turned to the human delegation. Gather your things. We're leaving. Ambassador Chen, wait, a voice called. It was the representative from Talus, a small species that had been on the Council for only 500,000 years. What about trade? Scientific exchange? Our species depends on cooperation with humanity. Chen stopped. You're welcome to negotiate trade agreements with Earth, as separate sovereign entities. If you treat us with respect, we'll respond with respect, but we will not be junior members of your club anymore. But we need your help, another small species called out. Our defenses are weak. The Devourers will reach us soon. Then I suggest you negotiate an alliance, Chen said. As equals. Not as masters and servants. She began walking toward the exit. The delegation followed. Stop, the Chancellor commanded. You will not leave this chamber until we have reached an agreement. Chen turned back. You're going to force us to stay? With what, your philosophy? Your enlightenment? The Chancellor had no answer. That's what I thought, Chen said. She walked to the door. It opened in front of her. The human delegation walked through. Behind them, the Galactic Council sat in stunned silence. For 10 million years, the Council had stood. Species came to beg for membership. They competed for the honor of joining. They sacrificed to be part of something greater than themselves. No one had ever walked away. As Chen Wei left the chamber, she heard the Chancellor calling for order, calling for discussion, calling for someone to make sense of what had just happened. But Chen didn't look back. She walked through the corridors of the station, past species who stared at the humans with shock and confusion. Admiral Okonkwo walked beside her. That felt good. It did, Chen agreed. What happens now? Now we go home. We defend our worlds. We live on our own terms. And the Council? Chen glanced back toward the chamber. The Council will do what it always does, debate, discuss, form committees. Maybe in a few million years they'll decide on a response. She smiled. But we won't wait that long. They boarded the human shuttle. As it departed the station, Chen looked out the window at the massive structure. It was still beautiful, still impressive, but it was no longer home. Humanity had walked away. And behind them, the Council went silent, because for the first time in 10 million years, the elder species had to face an uncomfortable truth. They needed humanity more than humanity needed them. And now, it was too late to fix what they had broken. 1 year passed. Chen Wei stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, humanity's new central command. It orbited Earth, a massive structure built from the resources humanity had pulled from Council projects. Through the window, she could see ships. Hundreds of them. Human ships, but not only human ships. There were vessels from Talus, from Kelmar, from a dozen smaller species. Species that had taken humanity's offer, trade as equals, alliance as partners, respect as the foundation. Admiral Okonkwo joined her at the window. The Admiral looked better now, rested, the weight of Council service no longer on her shoulders. Status report? Chen asked. All human worlds secure. 0 losses to the Devourers. Our fortress network is holding perfectly, Chen smiled. And our allies? Talus lost one colony before we got our defenses in place. Since then, nothing. Kelmar is secure. The smaller species are protected under our defensive umbrella. Casualties? Minimal. 300 humans lost in skirmishes over the year. Tragic, but nothing like Vex Major. Chen nodded. 300 was 300 too many. But compared to the millions dying in Council space, it was miraculous. What's the status of the Council? Okonkwo's expression darkened. Not good. They've lost 47 worlds in the last year. The Devourers are pushing deeper into their territory. Their fleet is scattered and demoralized. Command structure is a mess with everyone arguing about tactics. Have they asked for help? Officially? No, the hierarchy is too proud. But we've received quiet messages from individual species. They're desperate. Chen pulled up a star map. Red zones showed Devourer incursions. Blue zones showed human-protected space. The difference was stark. Show me the hierarchy worlds. The map shifted. 3 more hierarchy worlds had fallen. Their population was down by over half. They're dying, Chen said quietly. And they still won't ask for help. Pride, Okonkwo said. It's killing them, but they can't let it go. A communication officer approached. Ambassador Chen, we have a ship requesting permission to dock. It's from the Luminous. Chen and Okonkwo exchanged glances. The Luminous had been among the most critical of humanity. They had called human tactics barbaric. They had insisted on diplomacy even as worlds burned. Let them dock, Chen said. I'll meet them in the diplomatic suite. An hour later, Chen sat across from a Luminous representative. The energy being's light was dimmer than she remembered. It flickered like a candle in the wind. Ambassador Chen, the Luminous said. Its voice was still musical, but quieter. Thank you for seeing me. Of course, Chen said. What brings you to human space? The Luminous was silent for a long moment. We were wrong. Chen said nothing. She waited. About everything, the Luminous continued. About the Devourers. About diplomacy. About humanity. We were arrogant. We believed our enlightenment made us superior. We believed violence was never the answer. We believed we could talk to anything, reason with anything. The being's light flickered. We lost 4 worlds. 30 billion of my people. And when we finally tried to fight, we didn't know how. We had forgotten. We had spent 2 million years in peace, and we forgot that peace only exists because someone is willing to fight for it. Why are you telling me this? Chen asked gently. Because I am here to ask for help. Not demand. Not order. Ask as one sovereign entity to another. The Council sent you? No. The Council is still debating whether to approach you. They're arguing about terms, about what concessions they'll require from you before they accept aid. They still don't understand. The Luminous dimmed further. I came alone. Without authorization. I came to ask if you would teach us. Teach you what? How to fight. How to survive. How to protect ourselves. The being's light steadied. We thought violence made you primitive. We understand now that violence is simply a tool. What matters is how and when it's used. You've been trying to tell us this for years. We wouldn't listen. Chen stood and walked to the window. Below, ships moved in precise formations. Human and alien crews working together. Not because they had to. Because they chose to. I'll need to discuss this with Earth, Chen said. But personally, I think we can help you. What would you require in return? Respect, Chen said simply. An acknowledgement that humanity knows something about survival. That our experience has value. That we're not children who need to be guided by our elders. You have it, the Luminous said immediately. You have our respect. You've earned it. We should have given it freely from the beginning. Over the next months, more species came. Quietly at first. A ship here, a delegation there. They came without the Council's blessing, without the hierarchy's approval. The smaller species came first. Those who had always lived in the shadow of the elder races. They had the least pride to swallow. Then came some of the older species. Not the hierarchy, but others. Species who had watched their worlds burn while the Council debated. They all asked the same thing. Help us survive, and humanity gave the same answer to all of them. We'll help if you treat us as equals. Some couldn't do it. Some still insisted they deserved more respect because of their age, their accomplishments, their history. Chen turned them away politely. There were only so many resources to go around. Humanity would help those who were willing to learn. 8 months after Chen walked out of the Council chamber, a massive ship appeared at the edge of human space. It was a hierarchy vessel, one of their great dreadnoughts, but it came alone. And it came transmitting a single message on repeat. Request permission to speak with Ambassador Chen Wei. Urgent matter. Request permission to speak with Ambassador Chen Wei. Chen met them in the diplomatic suite. The hierarchy representative was old, even by their standards. His shell was faded, his antenna bent with age. "Ambassador," he said. His voice was tired. "The hierarchy has sent me to negotiate." "Negotiate what?" "The terms of our surrender." Chen blinked. "Surrender? We are losing. The Devourers have taken half our worlds. Our fleet is broken. Our people are fleeing to the remaining fortress worlds, but even those won't hold much longer." He lowered his head. "We need help. We are asking, begging, for humanity's aid. What about the Council?" "The Council is dead in all but name." "Oh, they still meet. They still debate, but no one listens anymore. The species that could adapt came to you. Those that couldn't are dying. Only the most stubborn remain, and stubbornness is not a defense against the Devourers." "What about the Chancellor?" "Dead. His world fell 3 weeks ago." Chen felt a strange mixture of emotions. Sadness for the lives lost, anger at the waste, and something else. Not satisfaction exactly, but closure. "What are you asking for?" she said. "Military aid, tactical training, technology, whatever you're willing to share. We know we have no right to ask. We know we treated you terribly, but we are asking anyway because the alternative is extinction." "And what are you offering?" The hierarchy representative reached into his robes and pulled out a data crystal. "Everything. All our scientific knowledge, our historical records, our technology. Everything the hierarchy has learned in 3 million years. It's yours. We only ask that you help us survive." Chen took the crystal. It was small, but it contained the sum knowledge of one of the oldest species in the galaxy. "This is too much," she said. "It's worthless if we're dead," the representative replied, "and we will be dead without your help. So please, teach us, protect us. We will follow your lead. We will accept your tactics. We will do whatever is necessary." Chen looked at the crystal, then at the representative. This proud, ancient being humbled by necessity. "I'll discuss this with my superiors," she said. "But I believe we can help you. On one condition, name it, a new alliance. Not the old council. Something new. Where species are judged by what they contribute, not how old they are. Where decisions are made by competence, not ancient privilege. Where humanity sits at the table as a founding equal member." The representative didn't hesitate. "Agreed. Completely and without reservation." 2 years after humanity walked away from the Galactic Council, Ambassador Chen Wei stood in a new chamber. This one was smaller, more practical, less grand, but it was full. Representatives from 40 species sat together. Former council members and species who had never been powerful enough to join. They sat in a circle. No elevated platforms, no inner and outer rings, everyone equal. The Devourers had been pushed back. Not destroyed, but contained. The new alliance had learned to fight together, to combine humanity's tactics with other species' technology, to use every advantage they had. Worlds were being rebuilt. Refugees were returning home. The war was not over, but it was no longer hopeless. Chen called the session to order. "The alliance has its first major decision to make. The old council station still exists. It's abandoned now, empty. What should we do with it?" There were suggestions. "Turn it into a military base. Strip it for resources. Destroy it as a symbol of the old ways." Chen listened to all of them. Then she made her own suggestion. "I think we should make it a museum," she said. "A reminder of what happens when pride matters more than survival. When respect is demanded rather than earned. When the powerful forget that strength without wisdom is just tyranny." The vote was unanimous. Chen returned to the abandoned council station one last time. She walked through the empty corridors to the great chamber. Her footsteps echoed in the silence.